Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be looking at factoring simple and complex trinomials. So the first example we have is x squared minus 2x minus 35. We know it's a simple trinomial because the a constant is just 1. Right, so our first step is just to write down our brackets. And because it's a simple trinomial, we know that the first term will be x. Right, and to determine our second term in the brackets, that's what we'll be going over today in this video. Right, so for simple trinomials, you need two terms that multiply to the constant term, which in this case will be negative 35, and you need the same two terms that add up to negative 2. Right, so we'll just write down our thought process here. So two terms that add up to negative 2, two terms that multiply to negative 35. Right, because there is an unlimited amount of terms that can add up to negative 2, we always focus on the multiplication sentence first because that will be easier in terms of process of elimination. Right, so we'll just write down terms that can add up to negative 35. So we have is 35 times negative 1 times 35. We also have negative 7 times 5, and 7 times negative 5. Right, so if you look at our first set of numbers here, we know these numbers cannot be possible because none of these two terms add up to negative 2. So in that case, we can just subtract, cancel these terms out. Right, and however, if you look at 7 and 5, we realize that they do subtract to negative 2. So if we were to go 7 times 5 and 7 times 5. Alright, so now to know which term will be negative, we're going to look at our addition sentence right here. So if you were to do 7 plus negative 5, we will get the answer 2. So we know it can be this one, and if we try negative 7 plus 5, we do get negative 2. So in that case, we know that the 7 should be negative. Right, so then we can write down our next two terms here since we do have our answer right here. So negative 7 and plus 5. And there you go. That's how you factor simple trinomials. Alright, so the second example we'll be going over there is 12x squared minus 5x minus 3. And we know that this is a complex trinomial because the a constant right here is greater than 1. Right, so to factor a complex trinomial, it's similar to a simple trinomial, it just requires a bit more steps. Alright, so for a complex trinomials, you have to multiply these two terms right here. And so in that case, that gives us a negative 36. So again, you need same two terms that add up to negative 36 that also add up to negative 5. Now, for two terms to multiply to negative 36, there's actually a lot. There's 6 times 6, 12 times 3, 18 times 2. In this case, we know that the two terms that will also add up to negative 5 will have to be negative 9 and a 4. Alright, so once you have your two terms, what you're going to do for your next step is you're going to put your first term down, 12x squared, and now you're going to divide the negative 5x into two terms. So we're going to have, we can either choose plus 4x or minus 9. I'm going to choose plus 4x, and I'll explain that why later. And then I'm going to go minus 9x, and make sure you add the x, which is really important. And then you can add your last term, which will be negative 3. Right, so now what you have to do, you have to simplify these terms by just looking at these two set of terms right here. So I put a 4 here because it will be easier to simplify the terms. So you can just simplify it by 4x, which equals to 3x plus 1. And for here, you can do negative 3, so that equals 3x plus 1. Now your main goal is to get these two bracket terms the same when you're simplifying it. Once you do, you can just put this as 3x plus 1. And then combine these two terms, which is 4x minus 3. And that's how you factor a complex trinomial. Alright, so for third example we'll be going over through is x squared minus 2x minus 2, and in this case it's equal to 0 because we are solving for x, which requires factoring. Alright, so we're going to find two numbers that add up to negative 2 and two numbers that add up to negative 2 as well. So we have 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 again. Right, so however in this case you realize that there aren't two of the same terms that will add up to negative 2. For example, if you do negative 2 plus 1, that equals to negative 1. And if you do 2 plus negative 1, that will equal to 1. So then you realize that there aren't two of the same terms that will give you negative 2. So in that case, what you do is you'll have to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x is equal to minus b plus minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now if you're confused on what a, b, and c is, just remember that for a trinomial, the first term is a, the second is b, and the last term is c. So then you're just gonna have to plug in the numbers. So x is equal to, so it's a negative, so negative 2 plus minus, and then your negative 2 squared minus 4, 1 will be your a term, and then c will be your negative 2, and you're going to divide that all by 2a, which is just 1. Right, so if you move forward, you realize that this becomes a positive 2 plus minus. This becomes 4 plus 8 all over 2. You can move this over. Right, so this will then become 2 plus minus 6, oh sorry, 12 over 2. You can simplify it by making this 2 over 3 divided by 2. And then you can also cancel the 2's out, so then you're just left with 1 plus minus 3. Therefore, x will be equal to 1 plus 3, or x is equal to 1 minus 3. Right, and that's how you're going to solve for a trinomial where you can't find the two same terms.